It's Berserking area coming back at you. I want to talk about traffic citations some more. Um, you know, we all know they're not fully criminal and they're not civil. They're a quasi-judicial trap. Okay, civil versus criminal, the legal gray zones. Civil violations involve disputes between parties with remedies typically involving compensation and not punishment. That's what you have with a victimless traffic infraction. You speeding, the only time jail comes into play is if you don't show up for fucking court. Okay? Criminal violations involve the state punishing harmful conduct harmful to society with penalties like jail, probation, or heavy fines. All right? These traffic violations often do not fit cleanly into either box. And what you'll notice in court is you're not afforded full criminal protections. Your jury trial, public defender, none of that. So for most minor infractions, you're just punished by the state, often heavily with fines, and your license, a government issued privilege, can be suspended or revoked. This creates a quasi-criminal category where due process is diluted. Okay? And the key violation here is the Constitution provides equal protection and due process for any government deprivation of life, liberty, and property, denial of full process, because the state reclassifies it as something lesser, is legally and morally questionable. And there's no doubt about that. Any real lawyers that have studied court or do traffic law, please chime in. Help. Learn. This is just me studying the same books y'all do. The American Jurisprudence, Black's Law Dictionary. I got PDF after PDF of documents and articles and stuff written about law and the Federalist Papers, the Mentors Edition. I got lots of books, but nothing really explains this quasi-judicial system, due process violations. It's you versus the state machine. There's no doubt about it. You're stripped of your fundamental rights, and traffic court proceedings deny full judicial review. So, when you contest it and lose, and you want to appeal it, there's nothing for them to review. Nothing. Most infractions are processed administratively or quasi-judicial tribunal. Okay. You may not have the right to discovery, depending on where you're at. There's no presumption of innocence. You must prove why you're not guilty. And the judge is paid by the city, hears thousands of cases a month, and rarely rules against the officer. Okay? There's a constitutional issue here. When a state action restricts liberty, freedom of movement, or deprives property, fines, license, suspension, it requires strict procedural scrutiny. Administrative courts are set up for efficiency, not justice. Okay? Like I said, ex parte 1926, a parliament judiciary member once said, in order for justice to be done, it must be seen. In courts of no record, you are not seen. Okay, the public safety Trojan horse here is justifying tyranny through safety. The government narrative is, to protect the public, we must regulate everyone who uses public roads. All right, sounds fair until it's weaponized against you. All travel becomes subject to licenses, insurance, inspection, registration, and constant tracking. No private mode of land-based transport, bike, car, motorcycle, ATV, is exempt unless you're off-road or on private land. Even Amish buggies in some jurisdictions have been forced to comply with DOT reflective tape standards. Legal sleight of hand, public safety becomes the pretext to strip fundamental rights like freedom of movement, privacy, and your damn property rights. And, I always say, I'd love to hear from professionals that speak this language for a living, and come in my videos, or even do a sit down with me and do a podcast or something, and do an interview and explain some of this quasi-judicial mess and help clear up some of the issues that some of us, see. I don't like sovereign citizens because it seems like to me they're more about anarchy and saying F the law. While I see good in some regulation of some things, even in the freedom to travel, there should be some form of regulation against people that are going to want to break the damn law. You know, that's obvious. You know, personal travel versus commercial regulation. Are you a commercial operator, or are you just driving to grandma's? Transportation codes are originally and specifically written for commerce, carriage of goods, and persons for hire. Yet, the states do not differentiate between personal and commercial use when issuing citations. Private individuals must comply with all commercial regulations. You're treated as same as a FedEx driver, despite not operating in commerce. This expands the police powers of the state without limiting principles. Regulatory overreach has created a system where the act of traveling free equals presumed criminality unless you comply with every regulation. Okay? Corporatism and incentive corruption. The court is a business, and you are the product. Courts often operate as a revenue-generating arm of the local government. The judges, prosecutors, and officers of the court. Okay? Even though they all operate in different aspects of the system, some's executive, some's judicial, they work together for the same cause. They're often paid directly or indirectly from fines or fees, benefit from state-sponsored retirement system funded by the court revenue, frequently align their rulings with the government interest and not yours. Cops and police programs and operation and corporations often use taxpayer money to argue for more lobbying and lobby for more laws and regulation against the American people. So they're using your own money to regulate you, and then using your own money to get more regulation over you. Okay? Impartiality here, and that's a legal principle that's being violated, is impartiality. Any court that benefits from conviction is not neutral. This is a direct violation to due process. You are judged by parties with a financial stake in your conviction. You know, lobbying with your tax dollars against your rights, public funds used to restrict public freedoms. Okay? State transportation agencies use taxpayer dollars and money for lobbying. They lobby for more speed cameras, different speed laws, more automatic fines and vehicle impound laws. They do not lobby for more fair trials, right to travel clarifications, or more robust due process protections. They don't give a shit about you because they're part of the corporation that's out to get you. All right? Constitutional contradiction. Public agencies should serve the public, not lobby to limit public rights. The shrinking of non-regulated travel space. How governments limit your travel choices. Local and state governments gradually remove or neglect unimproved roads to push everyone onto maintained regulated roads, okay? Private routes become barred, privatized, and tolled, absorbed into regulated systems. Your strategy here is we got to make non-regulated travel impossible. That's their strategy. So everyone falls on administrative control, whether you're a food delivery run or you're just visiting your homie. The judicial expansion of public powers using the Constitution to expand, not limit power courts, were originally created to check legislative and executive overreach. Now, traffic cases, the judiciary often rubber stamps police reports, dismisses rights arguments as sovereign citizen nonsense, use president stacking to justify increased surveillance and control. And instead of being liberators and protectors of liberty, courts now serve as administrative enforcers of the police state under the banner of safety. And there's no doubt about that, you know. And for those watching on TikTok, I'm going to make another video on how to challenge the system legally and intellectually. I'm going to make a quick video on that. But for now, stay out. And for those watching this on YouTube, when I post it, we can challenge the system legally and intellectually, but we got to know the strategy to fight back. And this is what I've come up with, okay? Between reading online and talking to AI about the legal system, we got to challenge jurisdiction. We got to demand proof that the court has proper subject matter and personal jurisdiction over non-commercial activity. So we need to take that to court and force the Supreme Court to clarify the difference and clarify if the courts have proper jurisdiction, okay? We need to force them to clarify proper regulations that separate commercial rights from private travel. Private travel can't be non-regulated because there's too many fucksticks out there that want to fuckstick and fuck around. All right? And people like me will shoot your stupid ass for fucking around and finding out. And now we got a whole different problem. So there needs to be some form of regulation because you fucksticks won't just drive appropriately. Okay? We need to demand impartiality, expose judicial conflicts of interest, especially if the judge's retirement or bonus depends on fines. Question regulatory overreach. Argue that the state's interest in safety must be balanced between my constitutional right and your constitutional right. Public records request. Get info on where court revenues go. Expose self-interest. Right? These are things we need to do. We can use the Constitution and maxims like the rights of the people shall not be infringed. The state must prove necessity and proportionality when curtailing liberty. All right. A conclusion here is a fight in court and not online. The battlefield is not ideological, it's procedural. These violations will not stop until challenged with direct action in traffic court, appellate court, and public disclosure. The current system thrives because most people comply out of fear, ignorance, and resignation. Every time you contest a citation, file a motion, or expose a bias, you disrupt the system's momentum. All right? A freedom movement based on law and principle, and not fantasy or extremism, is the only solution. So for you sovereign citizens out there, that extremism that you're doing is only hurting us. You got to stop. We got to go about this another way. You know, here's some legal maxims that I've written down that are great for traffic court. Okay, ignoranta juris non excusa. Ignorance of the law is no excuse. Study it, understand it, read it. You got to know what it says in order for you to study the legal meaning of that sentence and phrase and word, so that way you understand what they're doing. That's all I'm doing here is taking my interpretation and, as a layman, learning the legal definition. So that way I know the layman way and the legal way. Courts presume everyone knows the law. So claiming you didn't know the rule will absolve you from your local traffic codes thoroughly. Okay? Lex semper dabit redeem. The law always provides a remedy. If you're wronged, even by error in traffic citations, there's always a remedy through the courts. Don't assume you're powerless. You have to file motions. You have to object. You have to appeal. You have to file affidavits. You got to fight it. Actius non facie grinum nisi mens sit rea. All right? An act does not make a person guilty unless the mind is also guilty. All right? These legal maxims are used in courts. Courts go to them to understand meaning. Okay? These are very important to study. For some offenses, there must be intent. For example, speeding due to faulty speedometer or emergency may negate intent. Okay? It's very important that you study these. Okay? Audi alterium partium. Hear the other side. Okay? Fundamental principle of fairness. You have the right to be heard. Demand your opportunity to speak, cross-examine, and present evidence. Okay? When you're in a traffic court situation and the cop says his part, the judge asks you your side. Say, no, sir, before I can continue, I would like the right to cross-examine. And then challenge every comment that cop made. Ask him questions. Make sure he's doing his due diligence. If he's going to try you, he better bring his A game. Challenge any issues with the citation. Challenge any issues with his statement. Challenge any issue possible. Any doubt brought on his side is not bad in your defense. You want to show doubt on his side. You want the judge to say, oh, well, he can't be 100% definitive, because in traffic court and realism, they only need 50% to find you guilty. So you got to get that 50% down. And any doubt in his statements that you can challenge through cross-examination is going to benefit you. So learn to cross-examine, learn the process, learn what to say, learn how to ask questions based off of what he says. You got to learn how to form the questions based off of his comments. Okay? Nemo judix and causa sua. No one should be judged in their own cause, okay? It prevents bias. If a judge or an officer has a personal interest, a revenue incentive, for example, this maximum may help challenge fairness, okay? You can use it to your advantage to question unfairness and bias in the court system that strips away your due process and your rights and constitutional freedoms and protections. Okay? Ubi just ibi ridium. Where there is a right, there is a remedy. If your rights are violated, okay, unlawful stop, search or seizure, the system must offer a correction, suppression of evidence, dismissal, payment, but must be some performance. Okay? So, think about that. They have to solve each F up, okay? Whether it comes in the payment of money, whether it's the case being outright dismissed, evidence has to be suppressed that they can't use against you in a court of law. There's a lot that can be done with that. De minimis non curat lex. Okay, the law does not concern itself with trifles. All right, minor insignificant violations may be dismissible if argued as trivial under this principle. All right, so 1 mile an hour over the speed limit. 3 mile an hour. Oh well, that's that's all you have to say. It's just go in there and say, Your Honor, a motion to dismiss de minimis non curat lex. The law does not concern itself with trifles, all right? Which means the law does not concern itself and waste its time with bull crap, okay? Falsius and uno, falsius and omnibus. False in one thing is false in everything. And like I said, any doubt in their testimony, that's it. If an officer is proven to lie about one detail, their entire testimony is done for, okay? So you got to trip them up. That's where you win. Onus probandi incumne equidicit. The burden of proof is on the one who declares, not the one who denies. And when you go into court and out the gate, you're guilty until proven innocent, and every question or comment they say to you, they're suggesting you have to prove innocence. You look at them and say, Your Honor, I object. Onus probandi incumne equidicit. The burden of proof is on the one who declares, not the one who denies. Object. And always put the ball on their court. You must always push the ball back on them. They must prove without a shadow of a doubt. The state, not you, must prove every element of the violation beyond a reasonable doubt or by preponderance in civil traffic courts. If that citation don't have nothing other than the code and the speed you were going, right here. The burden of proof is on the one who declares, not the one who denies. He can't enter into the fact afterwards, evidence, unless it's approved. And obviously you're not going to approve allowing a cop to enter into the evidence extra information after the fact, because he should have done that in the beginning. That was his job. In civil matters, what you put down in the beginning is all you get. Same thing with criminality. What you put down in the beginning is all you get. Okay? So, nemo tenere sapiosum accusarar. No one is bound to accuse themselves. You got the Fifth Amendment. You have the right to not answer any questions during traffic stops or even in court. You have the right to plead the Fifth. You have that right, and use it. Use it to your advantage. Okay? You don't have to answer any self-incriminating questions during traffic stops or even in court. If your answer is going to incriminate you, you say, I'm sorry, I plead the Fifth. That question would force me to violate the Fifth Amendment, my right to not self-incriminate. Quil taxius consideria videtur. Silence implies consent. All right? Sometimes invoked in administrative settings. Know when silence might hurt you. Object if something is wrong or unfair. Okay? If you know something ain't right and you don't say nothing, you're consenting to agreeing that it's okay. Okay? So being quiet all the time is bad. You just have to learn and watch court cases and see when lawyers talk so you know when to open your mouth. In dubio pro reo, when in doubt, for the accused. Okay? Any reasonable doubt must be resolved in your favor, not their favor. If there's any reasonable doubt on their side, they have to be in favor of you. Emphasize uncertainties in the evidence or the officer's memory. Okay? Get that shadow of a doubt up. You want them to doubt any aspect of the testimony. Okay? Lex non cogit et impossibilium. Okay? The law does not compel the impossible. If compliance was impossible, okay? Example, if compliance was impossible, this can be a valid defense. Example, you couldn't stop safely due to road conditions. They have to throw it out because, again, you cannot be worried with trifles. Quia prior est stiporum patura est dru. He who is earlier in time is stronger in law. If you act first and were then ticketed unfairly, this supports your defense. You enter the intersection legally. So it's something I'm actually thinking about going back from a ticket a while ago that stuck. I had been hit by a blue Mustang in the rear corner panel, and there was paint on my truck. They showed it, and it caused me to spin out in not an intersection, but an off-ramp in Virginia, and I was ticketed with reckless driving. And though I won, the courts had done a bunch of illegal things, and I proved it and got it to go to appeals court. But where I lost, and I was winning 100% until I looked at the cop, I was like, "Sir, you just lied." And the judge did not tolerate it. Nope, he didn't like the way I worded it. You have to word things legally. If you just look at him and say, "Sir, you just lied in court," your judge is not going to be your friend. You're testing the character of the officer of his court, and he will not tolerate it. He will not have it. So I lost the case right then and there. And I lost because of his bias over that. There's no doubt about it. And, I thought there was nothing I can do. But now that I'm, studying the law, I do have the right to go back and question it and challenge it. And I'm thinking about doing it. And then I'm just to learn. I'm going to challenge it and take it back and see if I can't get it, a justice corrected. And just learn. I'm going to do it for a learning experience. Rea espa lecute. The thing speaks for itself. Obvious facts may not need detailed proof. Useful if your dash cam clearly shows no violation occurred. Okay? That's self-explanatory, I hope. Nollum crimium sin lege, nulla ponium sin lege. No crime or punishment without law. You can't be punished for something that's not clearly defined as illegal. Always verify the specific statute stated. Okay? If the statute is not illegal, and it's just a statute, then there cannot be no punishment for the crime. Lex talionis, law of retaliation. While not directly applicable in court, this reinforces proportionality. Penalties must match the severity of the act. So it is proportional to court, but it's proportional to charging and stuff like that. Expressio unius est exclusio autris. The expression of one thing excludes others. If a law specifies one thing, others not listed are excluded. It helps narrow down how a statute can be interpreted. Okay. And I'm gonna do I guess you could phrase it as a deep dive into each one of these legal maxims, because they're fascinating, because they help teach you how you understand the law. So we'll do a deep dive into each one at a further time, because I want everyone to learn, including myself. Fiat justia runa calium. Let justice be done through the heavens fall. Used rhetorically to demand fair treatment even if inconvenient. Assert your right to justice even if it disrupts court flow. Okay? So I don't care if it pisses them off and it ruins the court's momentum when you challenge jurisdiction, or you object motion, or you object a statement. It doesn't matter. Do it. Use it. Dura lex sed lex. The law is harsh, but it is the law. Acknowledge that while a law may feel unfair, you must address its enforcement rather than complain. You want to attack the application, not the emotion. Okay? And this is a great maxim, because great about this is a lot of people go into court with emotions. You know, you're all upset at the judge and you're mad at the cop. It's not going to get you nowhere. You have to learn how to apply the law against them to win your case, whether you're guilty or not. I don't care. Law is the law, and legalese is written in legalese. So if you're guilty and you can use it in your favor, O.J. Simpson, it's there. I mean, it is what it is. It's like Trump said about the tax laws. Yes, I use them exactly as you written them, just because you use them too. You know, I'm using the same laws that you put into play for yourself. So get over it. Lex specialis degregat lega genera. A specific law overrides a general law. If a specific rule applies, such as construction zone limits, it overrides general traffic laws, and you use this to defend, or challenge context. And we'll have to do a deep dive into that, because there's a lot that goes into that statement alone. But when you're in, like it says, construction zone limits, there's very specific rules that apply. And if they're using a generalization traffic law, then you challenge it. It's out of context. It's not correct. That summons is not written appropriately. Lex posteria degloratoria. A later law repeals an earlier law. If a statute was amended, only the most recent version applies. Double check what version is cited in your case. They might have put an old one, and that's not a correct issuing statement. That's not a correct citation. It's procedurally incorrect. It cannot go through court. Valente non fit injuria. To a willing person, no injury is done. Rare in traffic court, but could help if someone else consented to an action or a risk, yielding to a jaywalker or to avoid harm. If you get a traffic ticket, you know, because you're trying to stop an accident and avoid harm, right here, valente non fit injuria, exactly as the context tells you. Cleve emptor, let the buyer beware. May apply to faulty GPS or speedometer defenses, though it usually puts the burden on you. Okay? If you buy something that's faulty, it's not the court's problem. That's you. That's your problem. And you're not really going to be able to use that to your advantage in court, but you need to understand that the court's going to look at you this way and say, nah, well, that's your fault. Buyer beware. You bought something and then put your faith in it, that's your fault. Okay? Consensus facis legum. Agreement makes the law. Useful when contesting implied consent. Just because you drive doesn't mean you consented to every procedure. Sovereign citizens would probably use that, but in a negative way. There's a way to use it, and that's arguing in court. Lack of jurisdiction. You know, that's something we need to take to court and fight. And we'd have to use it in that fight. You know, necessitira esus. I don't even know what that how to pronounce that. Nocita Eslosi. A word is known by the company it keeps. You know, if you keep shit hanging around you, you could be known by the shit that's hanging around you. I learned that the hard way growing up because I always hang out with the bad folk. If a term in a statute is vague, its meaning can be clarified by the surrounding words. Helps clarify ambiguous charges. The problem I have with that legal maxim is look at the Uniform Criminal Code, Commercial Code. There's no term for private travel at all in regulation, and there's no words regarding regulation of private travel on the main roads, but it's implied that if you travel on a state-maintained road, you consent to the regulations. So, you know, if you consent to that vague statute, you're consenting. So know that. And not every charge that you're charged with can be clarified by the surrounding words. Because there's no surrounding words in the UCC that specifies private travel and forced regulation. Ratio dissentia denti. The reason for the decision. Understand why a precedent exists and use it to argue your case. Cite prior decisions that support your position. This is already done by everybody. But for the layman, study court cases on specific things that you're having trouble with. Use AI to find court cases. They can search through all of it and find cases that you can use to your advantage. Stare decisis et non quaeda movere. Stand by decisions and do not disturb the undisturbed. The courts follow precedent. Find similar cases where charges were dismissed under your circumstances. Look at the defenses used and then find one that you can reword for your circumstance. And pare delecte poter es conditio defendius. In equal fault, the position is the defendant is stronger. If both parties erred, but the officer's conduct was also improper, illegal U-turns, for example, cutting citizens off, you may argue for fairness. You know, you need to think about that. Specifically in my case, I watched an officer, if I would have pulled out of a turnaround and wiggled my rear end and a clear notion of lost control, I would get a ticket for improper control of a vehicle. Now, when he initiated his lights and pulled out onto the road, he had to do a U-turn, and in doing so, he lost control of the vehicle. And not only that, even though I was slowing down exponentially quick to go ahead and pull over, he still ran his vehicle as hard as he could and then used his brakes as hard as he could in urgency, like there was a crime being committed. You know, so I'm going to use that in my defense. You know, in equal fault, Your Honor, the position of the defendant is always stronger. You know, when the officer turned on his lights and pulled out and turned onto the road, he lost control of the vehicle by having improper control of the vehicle with his rear end wiggling because his tires broke traction. You know, and that's two wrongs don't make it right, but you know, his improper control of a vehicle needs to be looked at in regards for fairness. You know, and of course the cop's going to call you a liar, you know, because that's what they do. But you object and say that's defamation of my character. I could say the same thing, and you would tell me the same thing. So that's not okay. You object to those comments. You know, Salus populia supremum lex esto. The welfare of the people shall be the supreme law. If your actions protected life or safety, swerving to avoid an incident, your actions serve the greater public good. So if you shot someone who was raping someone or trying to kidnap someone, you serve the greater good. That applies to you. The welfare of the people shall be the supreme law. And you use that to your advantage for a defense when you're in a court. Okay? Like I said, in the next videos, I'm going to go down and I'm going to do a deep dive into each one of these all 30 legal maxims. And while I continue to find more legal maxims, and I'm going to do videos on each one of them, teaching each one of them, so that way each one can be used to defend yourself in court. I'm going to make another video here soon, talking about questions, that you might hear in court. And, I want the layman to understand how to properly speak and answer, so that way you have better protections in court when you're in front of the judge. Because if you don't have the money and you go pro se or propria persona, you're going to get hurt 100%. They're not going to play fair with you. So you have to play not fair with them. You have to be just as tough on them as they are on you. And that's your right to defend yourself. So no matter what, you have the right to defend yourself and fight back against the state. You have the right to try and win. And, the state doesn't like that. They don't like that at all. They hate that. That just pisses them off. They can't stand that part. When you speak, no. Oh, how dare you. But you know what? We're not here to be their friends. We're here to combat their system the best that we can. Okay? So the Berserkinarian coming out with some fresh legal information. Like and follow and subscribe. I'll make videos as often as I can. We're going to learn this legal system, and we're going to join our forces together, and we're going to try and take back control of our damn life and our freedoms. And we're going to go to court, and we're going to freaking win. I love y'all. Love God. And may peace be with you.